Hello, today we will be looking at a complete procure to pay process using Sage X3. Procure to pay process starts from a purchase request. So we're just going to click on purchase request there. That's you go to your purchasing, then purchase request there. Select the full entry. So I'll come to my right. I'm just going to do a new. The requester is admin as I'm logged in as admin. Then my request site, that site there. You can put in the request date, then fill in my product lines. So here I can say I'm doing the 5 sprockets. Request date is today. Purchase unit, purchase quantity, I can do 50. Then under the tags I can do my goods and services tags. Tab. Let's put in another line. Let's do a 7 sprocket. Request date is today, and that one we can do 15. We can leave the supplier blank for now, since it's just a purchase request, which is an internal document. The net price will pull through from the price list in the system, the default price list, and that's our general ledger account. So if we look at that account, that is a received but not invoiced clearing account. And then under the purchase tab or purchase type, you can see we have selected purchase. If you're making a fixed asset purchase, then it will be on fixed asset. However, if you're making a service item, so if it is not a product, then you select the services. Okay, so we tab in again and then select our tax type. Tap through, we don't need to select any other thing again. So at this stage I'm just going to do a create, and the system will create that request and assign a request number to it. In Sage X3 you can convert this request or this purchase request directly to a purchase order if you do not want to go through the full procure to pay process. But since we're dealing with a full procure to pay process, we will not be converting it to a purchase order. So I'm just going to close this page now. So the next thing we're going to do now is to do a request for quotation. A request for quotation goes out to your customers or to your vendors to say, we need this service, we need this product, please tender your pricing and tell us how long it's going to take for you to deliver, and also your delivery date. Okay, so at this stage now I'm just going to do a new again, and then select my request for quotation site. So I'm doing the request for quotation from which site? From that site there. The internal reference can be, we can say, is an RFQ batch 2, because I've done batch 1 earlier. And then we'll move forward, put in the RFQ date, the due date, and the requester. Okay, now at this point, when you come to the product, you can select the purchase request that you raised earlier. Okay, so it fills up your product line. So if we come down here, we can do purchase request selection, and that one there. Now you will notice that in Sage X3 you can decide to just do an RFQ for one line. Okay, so that is one line of 50 units and the other one of 15. I can decide to do an RFQ for just one line, or I can decide to do an RFQ for all lines. Okay, now in this case we're going to be doing an RFQ for all lines, so we're going to select this one as well, so the 2 items gets populated in our product lines. At the point of raising the requisition, we did not select any supplier for these 2 items. So at this stage right now, we will be required to select the suppliers that will be supplying them. So here we can come in here and we just select one or two suppliers. So I'm just going to select two. There's the first one there. Let's select another one. Okay, I'll select an American Supply, that one. So at this stage I'm just going to do a create now. Okay, and the system will create an RFQ number and generate it for the two suppliers that we have just selected now. Okay, alright, so we're just going to close because right now we've done our RFQ, but let's see how that record looks like. So if we do a print for RFQ now, so that is the RFQ, or a call for tender, that will be going out to our suppliers. Okay, so the next thing now is we have done the RFQ, which is a very useful tool for purchasing managers. We can now do RFQ reminders. RFQ reminders is something that you will need to run over time, okay, just to remind your suppliers that they have an obligation, okay, towards supplying the goods that you have requested for. Okay, now to do that, we'll go to the reminders there and we select the RFQ number we just created now, which is RFQ batch 2 there, that one. And then the system will populate the two suppliers that we're dealing with, as you can see. And then the moment we do the OK there, a reminder report will be generated. Now to view this reminder reports, you simply go to Report, External Document, then the RFQ reminders. Under the RFQ range, I'll simply select the batch. I can also select the site. So that was the site we dealt with, and then do a print. So that will show us the RFQ reminders that will be sent out to our suppliers. So this is the RFQ reminders. Okay, that's to the first supplier, and this one to the second supplier. Okay, now it is also important to note that in Sage X3, if these suppliers are foreign suppliers, everything you see here will be translated to that supplier's language. So if it is Spanish, if it is French, whatever language it is, it will be translated. So now we have seen the reminders. Let's go back now and capture the responses. So let's assume that the suppliers have all responded. So we will just click on New, under the site, select the sites, and select the supplier. Now under the supplier, we just select the selection. Now the system will display the suppliers that we selected, okay, for those transactions earlier. Now the reason why I have 3 is because I have one outstanding. So you can see there's a batch 1, but the ones we're interested in is just the batch 2. Okay, so we'll select that one, do OK, and then that is the RFQ number there. Under the lines, we have 2 products, so we're selecting this first one to deal with it, then OK. We go to the price, then under the reason, we're saying is supplier price list, the minimum quantity and the maximum quantity that the supplier can supply. If you have that detail, you can input that. Then the supply lead time, so we can say 3 days. The receipt date, and here you put the price, so we can just say $30. Validity date and the end date. Alright, so once you do a create, so once you have captured your responses, the next thing will be to generate a price list based on the prices that the suppliers has given to you. And whenever you are transacting in Sage X3 with those suppliers, that is the price the system will spill through. So to do that, I will just come to price list generation, select the supplier, which is that one there, select my first line item, that one, and then here I'll select my price list code. So I've defined that particular one, and then I'll do an OK here, and the system will generate a price list for that supplier. So should you want to see that, if you go to your price list entry and you go to your T21, you will be able to see that price list that was just generated, and that is this one here. Okay, then we'll do a close. So at this stage we have created our price list code based on the prices that we got from our suppliers. Okay, now should you want to view this report in terms of the price list, now we can go to report, that one there, and then under your, so if you look here, you will see I have purchasing price conditions C1, and there's another one called the purchasing price conditions for C2. The difference between the both of them is the C1 is just based on your supplier, so you will see supplier, then you will see their product, whereas in this one you will see product and then you will see suppliers. Okay, just depends on how you want to see it. So I'll run the first one now. Select my price list code, which is my T21. I'm going to change my validity date here to that, and then I'll do a print. So you will see that the system will display the suppliers, the products, and their price list. So that is the supplier there, okay, and these are the products. Okay, so now that we have done that, the next thing will be to raise a purchase order. Okay, so we'll go back to our purchasing now, and then come down to purchase order. Okay, do a full entry, do a new here, then here we put in our site, order date, and then the supplier. Okay, supplier is that one there. Sage X3 has got this little functionality like a note pop-up. So what happens is, if you want your colleagues to actually be informed about a certain supplier or even a customer whenever they want to transact with that particular business partner, then you can set up this on the supplier's master file, and whenever anybody tries to raise a purchase order or an invoice, this pop-up will show. Okay, so it's just a little tool that I just set up just so I can say one or two things about it. And then here we fill in our details, billed by supplier, the currency or tax rate, everything seems to be looking fine here. And so the next thing is we'll go to our lines. Now when you go to the lines and you select the first product, the system will automatically tell you, okay, that there are requirements to consider. Okay, whenever you see this, what it simply means is that this supplier has got pending purchase request that needs to be fulfilled. So that is the purchase request we did earlier. So if we tap there, the system will automatically fill that in. Okay, so you can see, and then here we tab in to say the quantity we're selecting is actually 50, and then we do an include all, and the system will add that particular line into the system. Okay, order quantity, everything seems fine. So here you can see that the gross price is actually pulling from the price list we created earlier. Okay, and should you have any landed costs item, you can also put in the price here. Okay, that's our GL account. The matching tolerance, so if I go back now just to show you, the matching tolerance is usually for problematic vendors or suppliers. So if you have suppliers that overbill you and you want the system to be able to track whenever they overbill, then you can set up a matching tolerance in such a way that when the system detects that an overbill has been made, the system will not process that transaction, which is BMS 003. Once again, we have our quantities or requirements to consider. Tap through there, select the quantity, which is 15, and do an include all there, then okay. So if I do a create, now notice that if I try to print this purchase order, the system will not print it. So even though the system will show the report parameters, if you try to print, nothing will come through. And the reason is because this purchase order has been tied to a particular workflow. So before you can print it, you will need the other person in the line of the workflow must have approved it. Okay, so in order to see that, if you come to your signature history, you will see here that the sender is admin, which is myself, and then the recipient is user 01, and user 01 needs to sign it before you will even be able to print this purchase order. So what we're going to do right now is I'm just going to sign off. I'll do a close here, sign off, and I'll sign in as that particular user, which is user 01, put in the password. So if I go through my workflow monitor, purchase signatures, and then go to my order. So at this point, all I have to do is I'll just click on it, and then signature, and then validate it. Okay, once I do that, it has been approved. So signing back in as admin. Now if you should go back to the order, you will now be able to print that particular purchase order. Put in my parameters and then do a print. Now the system will be able to print it, and that's the purchase order that will be sent out to each of our customers, okay, or our suppliers rather. Okay, all right, now the next thing is we have done our purchase order. The next thing will be to receive the shipment. Okay, because when you give out the purchase order to the supplier, they are now bound to deliver. Okay, so on delivery, we will come to the receipt here, select the full entry, and then here we'll do a new, select the site that is receiving it. Here we select the supplier, that is that one there. Okay, that's our pop-up. The packing slip date and all that. So under the order now, we can come here and pick the order selection. Okay, so if we do the order selection, the system will spool through those two orders. So because I want to select the two of them, I'll just click on the parent and it will spool through. Notice that the product is in red. What it simply means is that there are parameters that you have to fill in before you can proceed from here, and those parameters in this case is actually the location. So where are these items going to be located in, even within the receiving site? So I'm saying take it to storage, and take this one to storage as well. Okay, it can be anything depending on what you have defined. Alright, so at this stage now, that is my purchase receipt, and the system will create a receipt number for that particular transaction. Alright, then we do a close. So after we have received it, the next thing now will be to print out what we call a receiving worksheet, because we want to know, or the purchasing or the warehouse manager actually wants to know what is coming in. So in order to spool that through, the manager will have to print out what we call a purchasing worksheet. So to see that report, you simply go to report. So from the reports, you go to list, then you print the receiving worksheet. Okay, you can define it if you want to, or we can just do a print. So you can see here the expected date, the site is coming into the quantity and the received quantity. So this one will be filled in after he gets it. Alright, now we have received the item. The next thing will now be to invoice the customer, okay, or the supplier rather. So to invoice the supplier, we'll simply go to invoice. Sage X3 will make use of a three-way matching system, so that the invoice or the receipt will be matched to the invoice, and at the end of the day also the invoice will be matched to the payment. Okay, even we'll go to invoice, do a full entry here, then we'll do a new, put in our site, the invoice type, that kind of invoice, which is a regular invoice. Then the supplier is the Suppliers International, close just that. Okay, the supplier doc number will be the supplier invoice number, their own invoice number, so we put in that. Tap through other fields and put what is necessary, and then go to the lines. Now from the lines we can now select the receipt down here, so receipt selection, and the lines will come through, and our invoice line excluding tax is 55,050. Let's go to the control. So in order to balance things up, we will put in the 252 here as our tax, and then put in the 50 there as the invoice. Okay, at this stage we're now ready to create, so we create the then after that we will now do a post. So we post, it will say the document will be validated, we'll say yes, okay, go ahead, and then the invoice has been posted. So I actually wanted to view the invoice itself, so if I click on that, print record, which is our invoice. Okay, and that's the amount we need to pay to the supplier, which is 5,302.50. okay, now at this stage in Sage X3 you can actually cancel this transaction should you want to re-register it. Now unlike other business applications, whenever you post an invoice you may not be able to do anything to that invoice again except you raise a credit note. But in Sage X3 it has been designed in such a way that you can actually come in here and do an accounting cancellation. If you cancel this invoice, you have the opportunity to record the transaction again and repost. However, there are conditions to this. The invoice must not have been paid and the accounting year must be open. Once those conditions have been met, then you can actually cancel the invoice and repost. Okay, alright, now at this stage we have done the invoice. The final thing will now be to do the payment. But before I do the invoice, I just wanted to also point out the invoice validation function here. What this one does is, should you have a lot of invoices that you have created and they are in batches, probably a lot of them, and you want the system to just post all of them from a certain day to a certain day, you can run the invoice validation to do that. So now we have created the invoice. The final stage of the procure to pay process will now give the payment. We'll go to our AP and AR accounting and then scroll down to payments. That's one there. Okay, so we select that, and then here we can do a new, select our site, select the business partner or the supplier in this case. That's that one, AP and our account, entry reference, concept payment for supplier invoice, description, maybe we'll just say the same thing. Which bank account are we going to be paying from? That particular bank account there. And then if we come down here, you can actually put in the amount if you want to, or you can leave it blank and come in here, select your payment, select the type, and then go to your supplier invoice, and that is our invoice. So do that. So at this point we know how much we're paying, so we can now put in the price here, which is 5302, okay, .50. All right, and if you're collecting the check, you can put in a check number there. Okay. All right, at this stage now we'll just do a create, and the system will create that record, and then we post. Okay, post, put in the value date, which is today. Okay, and that payment has been posted successfully. Okay, let's look at some reports that we can actually run for a procure to pay process. So if we go to reports, under the AR and the AP accounting, you can decide to see the list of your supplier invoice, okay, for a particular site. So this is a list of supplier invoices. This report will show you those invoices that are yet to be validated, and those invoices that have or that has been validated. Okay, so you can see, all right, we have like these two yet to be validated. Okay, there are other reports you can run as well. So under the purchasing, you can go to the list there. You can decide to see your purchase invoice list, or you can even decide to see purchase orders that are still open. Okay, or you can even decide to see your purchase request list. Okay, all right, that's about how you can handle the procure to pay process with Sage X3. I hope you have enjoyed the video. Please do subscribe, and thank you for watching.